relocating sustainment factors, maintenance, um, long-term fuel. Because if we're going to go to war against Iran, we're going to talk about war that's going to last several weeks. We need the munitions, we need the fuel. We're going to be firing a lot of tomahawks, so we need replenishment at sea capacity. Um, we have the ability, America, to fight a global sustainable conflict, um, but we've never in recent years mobilized that capability to its totality because it's very expensive. Um, if I was, I'd be more comfortable saying, absolutely, we've crossed the Rubicon here if I had all the details, but we don't because it's classified. But you when it looks like a duck and walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, maybe you got to call it a duck. And everything we're doing right now points to pulling the trigger on a regime change operation in Iran sooner rather than later.
My question is always though if the Iranians see that it's coming, they see a regime change operation essentially being an existential threat, something that would break up Iran. I always wonder if they will wait for an attack to come or yeah. But
I mean, this is the problem with the Iranians. They're honorable people. And so they have bought into a this is the Geneva trap. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I hope history shows me wrong. And 2 weeks later, you can call me and say, Scott, you said this, that, and the other thing. And I'll say, well, Glenn, I was wrong. I didn't understand this. I'd love that to happen. I would love nothing more than to be proven wrong and humiliated in front of the entire world stage if that meant there was no war. Um, but the thing is, the Iranians, just logically, why this 2 week extension? What's happening in this 2 weeks of diplomatic pause? The United States isn't. See, the Iranians should really say, "Hey, we're not going to." Fact is, we feel threatened by what you're doing, and at some point in time, gosh, Article 51 might have to be invoked, citing the Caroline the Caroline precedent, Caroline affair is a Supreme Court decision made, I guess, in the 1830s or 1840s about the British intercept of a U.S. ship, the Caroline, that was sending munitions over to Canadian rebels. And we said you had no right to attack us, and the British claimed preemptive self-defense. And the Supreme Court agreed with them. And so it's become a centerpiece of international law. So the Iranians can simply say, we can't just let you build up military force to this. If you reach a certain extent, we have to preempt. And you set that extent below the threshold necessary for American victory, and you say cease and desist the movement of forces, or we have to assume bad intent. And understand that when we preempt you, we're also going to take out Saudi oil fields, Azario. We're going all out. It's not going to be a little thing. We're just assuming your worst intent. We're going all in. They also should get the Chinese to come in and say an American attack against Iran causes us to rethink our entire approach to Taiwan. And that puts the Americans in a conundrum because we can't fight two wars at once. Um, Things need to be done the United States right now is being allowed to do everything necessary to make this a possibility. And what needs to happen is people need to put all the obstacles in the way, including Iran. They got to where they're at right now because they have ballistic missile capabilities that send the fear of God into Israel and the United States. What they're allowing the United States to do is build up a capability that at least creates the perception that we can mute the Iranian ballistic missile advantage. We can nullify it. We can limit it. And that empowers us to act further. Why Iran is allowing this to happen, I don't understand. Because I'm just telling you, that's exactly what's happening right now. Past performance is predictable future outcomes. We behaved we used perfidy once, we'll use it again. We hid behind nuclear negotiation once to set up Iran for a surprise attack. We will do it again. It's what we do. And so Yeah, either Iran changes its posture or it will be led down to the path of its own demise. And China likewise has to understand. I mean, in Russia too. Russia is tied down in Ukraine, so I give Russia a little bit of a pass right now. They're already engaged in their own existential struggle against the collective West. But China, Donald Trump has said he wants to dismantle BRICS, and if he gets away with destroying a BRICS member, what do you think is going to happen next? How many nations are going to be lining up to join BRICS in the future? None. Brazil, it's easy pickings. They're in the Western Hemisphere. They're gone. South Africa, nobody's coming into defense of South Africa. So we just removed the B and the S, and all you have left is Rick in the middle. And Rick is dead. So China needs to understand this. It's time for China to put on its big boy pants. And maybe that's what Xi Jinping's been doing in terms of purging, the the military committees, et cetera. But you know, I'm not encouraging a Chinese conflict with Taiwan. I'm not encouraging war whatsoever. But to sit by passively and do nothing empowers the United States to do these things. And if if you let the United States get another cheap victory, because my God, if we do go in, if the military planners are right, if the CIA is right, the CIA is not stupid. Sometimes they're incompetent, but they're not stupid. They have to have a reason to believe that they can bring down the Iranian government. There has to be something going on inside Iran that empowers the CIA to make this call, something that we're not aware of, a penetration of the Iran. And we know that they've penetrated deeply. The Israelis have penetrated deeply into the Iranian government, Iranian security services, et cetera. So they have to have a level of confidence that if this level of pressure is brought to bear on Iran, this is the expected outcome. Or else they wouldn't take this risk, because this is a huge gamble. You can't be gambling on this scale. This is why when people say, do you think America could succeed? I don't want them to succeed. And I'd like to believe that Iran is resilient and is strong and determined as they are. But I'm looking at the behavior of the actors on this side. This isn't a bluff. They're moving forward with confidence, and they are being told things that appear to be grounded in certain realities that we, the public, aren't aware of, about the fragility of Iranian governance, the fragility of the ability of Iran to withstand the pressures that are going to be placed on it. We know their economy is very susceptible to manipulation. We saw Scott Bessent trigger the disruption of December and January. He can trigger it again at will. Um, so I think the only way you stop this is to behave decisively, which is something Iran has not done. That's the other thing. You know, Iran, we keep saying Iran has the potential to turn Tel Aviv upside down. Then why didn't they? Why in June didn't they turn Tel Aviv upside down? Because Iran always behaves with restraint. They're always looking for the outcome to lead away from decisive conflict. The United States is preparing for decisive conflict. So the moment of Iranian restraint is past. They need to put the United States on notice that if you continue to mobilize these forces to this degree, we will assume ill intent and we will act accordingly. And there's no chance of diplomacy. And China needs to say the same thing. An American action against Iran will cause us to re-examine the totality of our approach against Taiwan. Because let me just put the Chinese on notice. If we take Iran, we are going to walk away from the one China policy. And we're going to double down on defending Taiwan, not because we love Taiwan, but what's the easiest way to checkmate China in the Pacific? To make Taiwan part of the playing game, part of the playing field. Now we're not talking about Chinese, in the South China Sea. We're talking about checking right at their border with Taiwan. This is the thinking in Washington, D.C. right now. Insanity. But that's where we're at.
Well, it's a lot of stake, which suggests, yeah, the Russians and the Chinese could assist in a big way, though. Of course, not a shooting war with the United States, but other ways. Anyways, thank you so much for taking the time, as always, and letting me pick your brain. So thanks again, and yeah, I hope you come back soon.
If we're still here. Yeah. Have a good. All right, good. Thanks.